Hey, Cloudcast community, listen up. Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a cloud-scale monitoring and analytics platform. Datadog was built to bring clarity to complex, dynamic applications, whether they're in the cloud, on-prem, in containers, or wherever you run your applications. With powerful dashboards, seamless integrations, and more than 250 technologies they can monitor, Datadog has you covered. Whether it's AWS, Azure, or Google services, your popular open source projects and products, or web security and APIs, Datadog can help you monitor them and help you collaborate around troubleshooting them and make sure they're running great. Datadog provides deep end-to-end visibility into the health and performance of modern applications. So, try it yourself. Get yourself a free 14-day trial. Go to datadoghq.com/cloudcast. That's datadoghq.com/cloudcast to try out your free 14-day trial. And if you try it out, let them know your friends at Cloudcast sent you, and they'll send you a great, wonderful, soft, awesome t-shirt with the Datadog logo on it. I wear mine all the time. So once again, that's datadoghq.com/cloudcast. Thanks for listening, and here comes the show.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We've been doing this thing with the Cloud News of the Week, and last week we did a big show, kind of a summary show about AWS. Got some good feedback from people that they liked the format of kind of going through a big show and talking about the announcements. So we will try and do that for some of the major shows. Obviously, we're not going to do them for every show, but gives us a reason to do some homework and focus on what got announced at really big events, and hopefully share that with all of you. So thank you for the feedback. Not a lot of news this week. The DockerCon event went on in Europe, which is usually kind of their smaller show versus the U.S. show. KubeCon is coming up next week. So I think what we'll do is for Cloud News of the Week, we will probably kind of do some summaries of both the DockerCon show as well as the KubeCon show, maybe as one bigger show, as opposed to kind of cramming in just a couple of announcements in Cloud News of the Week. So look for that in the next week or so. We'll try and summarize all those things together for you. The one thing that I do want to talk about in today's Cloud News of the Week real quickly is it is that time of the year. For anybody who's listened to the show for a long time, you know that Aaron and I run in a race that's called the Krispy Kreme Challenge. It'll be around February 3rd this year. It's always the first sort of Saturday in February of the new year. And for those of you that are new, sometimes you'll hear us talk about the donut run or the Krispy Kreme run. In essence, this is our one chance of the year to really try and make a difference in our community, give back, really try and help some people. The basics are this. The Krispy Kreme Challenge it started off as a kind of a goofy thing. It's a run. It's about 8,000 people get together in Raleigh, North Carolina. You run from the NC State University to about 2.5 miles to the Krispy Kreme. You eat a dozen donuts. I know that sounds crazy, especially if you're listening to this for the first time. And then you collect yourself and run back another 2.5 miles back to NC State's campus. So 5 miles in total, 12 donuts, about 2,400 calories. And all of the money that gets raised for the race, both through your entry fees, but also through other charitable donations, goes to help the North Carolina Children's Hospital. And the North Carolina Children's Hospital is an organization that really helps children that are in pretty bad, sick situations. So life-threatening diseases, very difficult situations. They do an unbelievable job to help not only the kids, but also the parents, be able to help the parents have a place to stay while the kids are in, typically, unfortunately, longer-term situations. So what Aaron and I do every year as part of that is they have a additional fundraiser for the race. Aaron and I, for the last 6 or 7 years now, have really reached out to the Cloudcast community and said, hey, if you guys like the show, we always put the show on for free. We don't ask you for anything for the whole year. We try and give you great content. We try and educate you, try and make you better in the community. And we ask once a year that if you like the show, maybe give back a little bit. None of it goes to us. Every dime, 100% of the money goes to the North Carolina Children's Hospital. And it makes a huge difference in the lives of those kids. And it's not just for North Carolina kids. There are kids that come from all over the world because they do have world-class doctors that work with these kids. So the simplest way to make a donation, and these are all charitable donations, these are tax-deductible donations, the simplest way to do that is you can go to two things. If you go to our websites, thecloudcast.net, up in the top right corner, you will see a big picture of the Krispy Kreme logo. So if you click on that, you can make a donation. Also, if for some reason you can't find that, if you go to our Twitter feed, right in the Twitter feed, there is a link to the Krispy Kreme challenge and our donation page. So if you're able to make a donation, we would love it. It'd be great. It helps children in need. If you like the show and you feel like you'd like to give back a little bit, that would be great as well. So you'll hear us talk about this periodically between now and February. We're just getting started. We're very lucky to have raised about $1,200 or almost $1,300 out of a goal of, typically we say about $3,500, $4,000 a year. Sometimes we raise more than that, which has been great. I think we've raised about $27,000 over the last 5 or 6 years. So something that is really important to Aaron and I, helps us give back to our community, and it really helps us recognize the Cloudcast community. So with that, I'm going to wrap up our cloud news for the week and look forward to a really interesting interview we've got looking at some serverless technology. And with that, let's get to it. Okay, let's do this. We are recording this the week of KubeCon and Cloud Native Con that will be out in Seattle. And so obviously, what's going on in both the Kubernetes world, but also, kind of the emergence of serverless in that world is becoming a bigger deal. So very, very excited today to have a couple of, old friends of the show, some veterans of the show, alumni of the show, both Mark Hinkle and Sebastien Goasguen, who are starting a brand new company called TriggerMesh. So guys, welcome back to the show, and tell us a little bit about what's going on with TriggerMesh.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. You want to start, Mark, or should I start?
So, TriggerMesh is a serverless management platform, and Sebastian got excited about the possibilities around serverless when Google launched Knative in July, and he started poking around with it and was impressed with the technology. And then he had asked me to take a look at the space, and through the course of our discussions, I got excited about it. And in September, we formed TriggerMesh, and we've been working on our product. We have a few customers already that are looking at using TriggerMesh to publish serverless functions to Knative enabled clusters.
Yeah. Sebastian, I know you and I were out at the Google Next conference just before Knative was getting announced. And obviously, for anybody who's followed the show, you had created Kubeless, a little while back. And eventually that was part of Skipboxx, and you had sold that to Bitnami. But kind of connect the dots for us from, having worked on essentially a serverless or functions framework on Kubernetes to sort of where Knative fits in the bigger picture of serverless and serverless on Kubernetes.
Yeah, totally. That's a very good question. So Kubernetes has really established itself, as you know, as the de facto standards for managing containers, and it has a very strong API that allows us to build systems, distributed systems on top of Kubernetes. Some people say Kubernetes has become the data center kernel, as a reference to the Linux kernel. So Kubernetes is really this foundation on which you can build systems. That's why late 2016, when there was a lot of people excited about AWS Lambda, I said, hey, wait a minute. If we actually want something like Lambda, we can build it on top of Kubernetes. And I started working with one of my friends, Tuna, at Skipboxx, and we built Kubeless. It was really meant as a prototype to showcase what you could do with, at the time, Kubernetes third-party resources. And then that became custom resource definition. So, we showed how you could extend Kubernetes and start dealing with a new type of workload, functions. And of course, that FAS space, so a lot of other products. There was Fission, a little bit before Kubeless, OpenFAS, OpenWhisk, of course, from Red Hat and IBM, Nucleo, and so on. So there were, that space has seen a lot of products. And I had been talking to Google on and off about this. They really liked the design of Kubeless because it was pure Kubernetes, really based on CRD. So they really liked it. But there were a few missing pieces like auto scaling, especially the scaling down to zero and up from zero, which is really key in functions because you don't want to pay when you're not calling the function. And also a build system if you have compiled language functions like Go and Java and things like this. So we had a few missing pieces, and Google came out with Knative, and Knative brings you those missing pieces, leverages on Istio, the service mesh, to do additional security, to do this scaling to zero and scaling up from zero. Leverages things like Kaneko to do in-cluster builds. So basically, Knative now brings you all the key primitives to build new systems, and especially serverless like system or FAS-like systems. And we see all those key primitives: the build system, the pipeline system, the function, the eventing, which is really key in Kubernetes. In FAS. So, you look at this and now it makes total sense, when you look at Pivotal, who is refactoring Riff on top of Knative. OpenWhisk, folks from Red Hat and IBM are definitely taking a hard look at refactoring OpenWhisk on Knative. And for me, it makes total sense, even though I've created Kubeless, to really embark on Knative. And go really deep in it. And that's what we are doing with Trigger Mesh. We're building on top of Knative, reusing all those key primitives, but now with a extremely powerful monitoring, networking, auto scaling build system, and then providing a kick-ass experience to developers. Here you go. I said. I usually never swear, but I said it. It's kicking butt.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. That's excellent. Just one quick clarification, kind of technical clarification. So for anybody that's looking at Knative, so let's say you had looked at OpenFAS or Kubeless or OpenWhisk or something in the past, do those essentially go away, or is Knative kind of providing a pluggable framework for those to still sort of exist for maybe how you run your function, but then it manages a lot of other things, or do those sort of go away and Knative kind of provides that same sort of functionality in a different name and so forth?
Yeah, very good question again. And I will punt a little bit on this one, Brian. Okay. I'll just say that, look at what Pivotal is doing. They're definitely said, hey, we're not going to build Riff anymore per se. We're going to really use Knative as the core. Okay. So you see a strong signal there. I'm very curious to see what OpenWhisk decides to do, but we're seeing some prototypes coming out of the OpenWhisk community where they're using Knative. And then you can look at what we're doing, and definitely we're seeing Knative as the solution going forward. If you take one of those FAS like OpenFAS, to me OpenFAS provides you a very nice way to create a function, mm-hmm. and the artifact becomes a container. Okay. And then if you just have these containers, you can totally run an OpenFAS function in Knative. It's extremely simple. Okay. You just start your OpenFAS container as a Knative service. And then right there, you have the monitoring, you have the auto scaling, things like this. So it diminishes what you get from OpenFAS and really makes it a system to create the artifact. Yeah. But the entire control plane is now 100% Knative.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. And I think people were a little confused because, as you said, different companies or different groups had sort of stated where they were going. Knative came along and people are figuring out, how do you refactor or sort of realign to this sort of emerging standard. So both of you guys have been around this space for a while. You were both heavily involved with things like CloudStack. So you understand sort of the breadth that people need around, managing these systems. You've also seen the evolution from, people wanting to do things as, distributed software, on-prem types of things to SaaS offerings. Talk to us about Trigger Mesh in terms of what the technology is trying to do, how you're going to deliver it out to customers, and kind of the broader sense of what you're trying to build.
I'll let Mark take that.
The product guy handing back to the business guy. No, actually, I think the key is that what we see in serverless is that all the providers are doing a really good job of delivering hosting of functions. And the thing is that they all exist in these silos within individual clouds. So what we do is we provide a way for those functions to actually interact among clouds by hosting them on the Trigger Mesh cloud and then using event sources to trigger function. Because the design patterns in Cloud Native are now applications that are made up of, dozens or hundreds of individual functions. And those functions are typically in each cloud triggered off of sources, whether it's in Amazon through Kinesis or SQS, or, you may have other functions that are dependent on messages from Apache Kafka or things like that. And we provide that fabric that allows you to trigger functions across both cloud or multiple clouds, hence the name Trigger Mesh.
Gotcha.
And give you a CI/CD pipeline to a serverless offering that is either for everyone is the SaaS offering. So we'll deliver that as a software as a service, and we'll also have some of our bigger customers who want to provide Amazon Lambda type functionality in their own data center. And these are bigger customers that are doing it at scale, and we'll help them instrument their serverless clouds as well.
Gotcha. So if I kind of break that down, it's on one hand, you want to make it as simple as possible for people. Hence, it's a SaaS service, so there's not platforms to have to go build and so forth. You guys are going to build and run that rich set of event sources that people can plug things into, so you can build rich applications. And then obviously, there is a huge demand from customers for, flexibility about which cloud am I in? Am I on-prem? Am I in the public cloud and so forth? And you guys are trying to be very, very, very cloud agnostic in terms of, delivering a rich set of services, but not being bound to any, location or specific cloud service. Is that kind of a good summary of where you're going?
Yeah. We're operationalizing serverless for developers. So, they want to just write their code and make it execute and be able to pull those event sources easily. And that, speeds their time to deployment and lets them write the actual business logic into their applications that is of value and codifies the things like event sources and other things across their functions.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yep. And it was very well put, Brian. Maybe you want a job with Trigger Mesh.
I'll come over to Hinklandia.
There you go. But if I can add something, definitely with FAS, you got a couple things. You got, let's say 3 things. You got deploying the function. So we provide a way to go from your version control system to deploying your function on the Trigger Mesh cloud. Later down the road, we'll see if there is a very strong appetite to also use Trigger Mesh to deploy on Lambda or GCF or Azure. But for now, you deploy on the Trigger Mesh cloud.
Gotcha.
Second thing, it's the eventing, which is really key to build the complete application. So you need to pull events from a rich set of event sources, like you said. So we have sources from Azure, Lambda, and Google. to start with, but we envision to see lots of other sources more on-prem specific and then specific to other software as well, like e-commerce platform and things like this. So we provide those event sources to start building a composition of function. And then the third thing is definitely, where do you deploy? Where are, all those functions? So we want to give that choice. You called it cloud agnostic. But first we are offering Trigger Mesh as a SaaS because we think it's really the ethos of serverless, that people shouldn't have to take care of installing Kubernetes, installing Knative, and things like this. But then people may want to say, hey, I actually would like to have this experience on-prem, even though some folks are going to disagree whether that's serverless or not, but you may want that type of developer experience on-prem, so we can provide Trigger Mesh on-prem. And then, Trigger Mesh gives you a multi-cloud, type solution through its deployment and eventing sources.
Gotcha. So, if we get back to Knative a little bit, the nice thing about that is, it's a framework that, like you said, provides for a bunch of different areas, right? There is sort of serving functions. There is, builds, so things around CI pipelines or kind of new ways to do builds on the platforms, and then there's events. As you're looking at your architecture, you're talking to customers, do you get a sense that some of those areas are sort of better defined today, and there's opportunities for innovation and differentiation in others, or where do you see your customers asking you for sort of the biggest amount of help or places where you can really help them in the broader Knative framework set?
Yeah. So I'll take that one. If you look at the Knative documentation, you'll see that it's a little bit intriguing. The word serverless is not mentioned, and Knative is really about providing a set of primitives to build additional systems on top of Kubernetes. So you have primitives to allow you to go easily from source to URL. Okay, so Red Hat has source to image and things like this. Here we're talking about source to URL. So my code is in version control. How quickly can I get it deployed and managed in production? So definitely there are primitives to do this, and that's the core of the FAS. But on that path to providing source to URL, Knative also provides you with a build system, okay? And the build system actually feels a little bit like an open sourcing of Google Cloud Build, which is a very underappreciated service, actually, but it's extremely powerful. And Google Cloud Build is a CI/CD system light, okay? So you do get some type of CI/CD in Knative, and this is being actively deployed and is soon going to be replaced with a project which is the Knative pipeline. So what you get in pipeline is you get the ability to create workflows and manage workflows. So in the last few weeks or few months, if you look at there's been quite a few things said about workflows and actions and things like this. So my bet is that you're going to see a lot of interest in Knative pipeline. And even if customers are first interested in Trigger Mesh from a function perspective, from a source to URL, I do think that very quickly, they're going to see that there are a lot of advantages also with pipelines in Knative. So it's one of the example, right? The first attraction is going to be with the core function and then the eventing, but then the pipelines I think are going to be a big differentiator and something that's going to bring Knative to the next level.
Yeah, makes sense. It's definitely a space that people have pipelines but don't necessarily love the ones they have. So definitely an area that can improve quite a bit. Mark mentioned at the beginning, you guys already have some early customers. Obviously, you're out talking to different people. As the company becomes more publicly visible. What are some of the common use cases that people are talking about where they feel like, they want to A, use functions or serverless, but B, they feel like, they need a management platform to help them sort of accelerate that?
Yeah. So, I always say it's still early. If you look at, the most serverless usage is definitely, I would say 80% Lambda or maybe 90% Lambda. But, for the sake of 80-20 rule, let's say it's 80% Lambda. So a lot of people that we talk to, it's still exploratory. Let's be honest. It's still exploratory. And the main pain point is really, hey, I have my developers, they have this code. They don't want to write a Docker file. They don't want to write a Kubernetes manifest. Actually, they don't even want to learn the Kubernetes API. How can I get their code deployed and accessible and then managed in production, right? So that's really the biggest pain point of pretty much a developer experience for how do I get my code in production. Okay, we're not yet, they're not yet talking really about events or leveraging events in very advanced ways. Even though few people know that they can do like ETL, like pipelines and things like this. So, I would say, being honest, that it's still very early, and the core, the key first request is really developer experience to facilitate the use of Kubernetes and deploy apps. Okay,
yeah, that makes a bunch of sense. If people are interested in reaching out to you guys, obviously there's a place on the website that says, hey, if you want to get involved, early customer trials and so forth. Where can people, you guys are always out and about in the community. Where are some of the places that, either yourselves representing Trigger Mesh or other folks from the team may be out at events? It could be KubeCon, it could be other events. How can people get in touch with you guys?
Well, the best way is definitely through the website and the early adopters program, as you mentioned. But we should be at KubeCon and probably a few other events. But right now, we're balancing between customer engagements and industry engagements. So for sure, go to triggermesh.com or at triggermesh on Twitter.
Yeah. And are there, obviously as a young company, you never sort of want to turn down people that are interested, but are there, is there a profile of a type of customer today that you guys are sort of finding, yep, the product we have today or sort of where we are, early product is a really good fit maybe versus something else?
Well, I think we're probably in sort of that green field as far as other products, but it's absolutely people who have serverless deployments across multiple clouds, people that want to run serverless on Knative, but as Sebastian said, don't want the overhead of operationalizing that in their data center, or cloud providers who want to offer serverless and want to have self-service for their developers as well.
Yeah. No, makes a ton of sense. I mean, the whole space is very much becoming, we're seeing some standardization, which is great. We're seeing more and more offerings which take the burden off of developers or, people having to hire operations teams that may not be able to keep up with this. So very, very cool that you guys are bringing this to market. Obviously, both of you guys have a deep track record of not only building cool technologies, but getting successful companies into the marketplace and so forth. So guys, with that, thank you very much for the time. As always, it's great to catch up with you. Folks, if you're listening to this at KubeCon, definitely go track down Mark or Sebastian. They will be around and about. And with that, we thank you all for listening this week, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.